What comes to mind when you see this picture? Pain? Anger? Or maybe even heartbreak? Well, I recently went through this painful experience myself, and it ignited a rage so strong, I have to do something about it. Luckily for LEGO, I'm not a fighter, but I am a designer. So in today's video, I'll be redesigning LEGO's logo to better represent the pain the product causes, bringing justice to all those who have ever experienced the agony of stepping on one of those small plastic bricks. So I've got my LEGO logo as a vector. Now, the logo currently sits on a really awkward slant, which makes it a lot more difficult for me to go in and actually customize the individual letters. So to get rid of this, I'm going to grab the shear tool. I'm just going to straighten this up slightly so that the letters now sit upright. It means I can now go in and start customizing each individual letter. Now, the place I want to start is actually getting rid of this friendly, soft, bubbly and round feel to the logo, because I don't think it fits well with their products. I mean, when you think of a LEGO brick, you think of pointy, sharp and painfulness. And I really want those emotions to reflect in the logo. So I think we've got to start by getting rid of, those rounded edges to really get that point across. So to do this, I'm going to grab the pencil tool. I'm actually going to use it to just start adjusting these individual letters so that I can pinpoint where I want those straight edges to be. So I'm kind of just using the original letter as a guide, just drawing around it and just completely customizing that original letter. Now, this is going to be a trust the process kind of process, because right now things are a little bit messy, it's a little bit rough, but with a bit of refinement, it will get there. Now, that's one thing I love about the pencil tool, is that you can just keep adjusting and get the layout right before you start adjusting and refining. So I've got the basic layout. I'm happy with how that's looking. It does need to be refined and obviously neatened up, but we can deal with that later on in the process. Now, the next thing I'm trying to think about is when you're designing a logo, there needs to be intention and strategy behind that. Now, there's a couple ways you can do this: by incorporating the brand story, or relating it back to the product, but making sure that it's not too cliche and too overdone, because that's when you'll find it difficult to stand out in your industry and against other competitors, especially if everyone is all doing the same thing. So for this already, we've already got some sort of strategy behind the logo. We're taking it away from that soft, bubbly feel to something that fits into more of their products with the LEGO bricks. So we've added in those sharper and pointier edges, which works well with their strategy. Something else I actually want to try is now adjusting the layout so that it feels more like a logo, it's more compact, and there's actually intention behind it. So what I'm going to do is just play around with a couple of layouts. I'm just going to duplicate this so I can keep adjusting. Now, something that popped into my head when I think of LEGO bricks is slotting into one another. When kids are playing with it, they kind of form into one to make whatever they're trying to build. And I think we could try and get that across within this logo. Now, one idea I had was maybe slotting some letters together. Now, I'm going to actually adjust the bottom of the L, bring this over to the E, and then just make this E slightly smaller, as if this E is like falling down and it's slotting into that LEGO brick. Kind of like that idea. I'm just going to move this back so that it forms and aligns nicely with the edge of the E. And then I can grab these two letters, just bring them in so that it's starting to form a LEGO brick. Now, something I didn't even consider was having these letters form into a rectangle. Now, I'm just going to grab the rectangle tool so you can see what I'm talking about. But if we were to build these letters as a shape, we've got a rectangle that's building, which I kind of like. There's like this intention behind it that these LEGO and these letters make up that brick. So we've got that first idea. I'm gonna go down to this second one. I think we could maybe try this again, but we could move the L so it goes all the way to the edge. Kind of works as a really nice underline as well. Make these smaller, as if these are like slotting down into that L. We'll bring this back in, see how that works. kind of like that. I don't know whether the L gets lost now and it kind of just reads as ego, which might be a slight issue. I mean, I could try and make this a little bit longer and then just grab the rectangle tool. Maybe create like a box around it to act as that Lego brick. See how that looks. I think the problem we're gonna have with this is now the L gets lost. So I think I'm gonna scrap these ideas because I do think this is a strong idea. I like how the E slots down nicely into the L. It's feeling nice and compact and it's starting to look more like the Lego brand. Now, the next thing I need to do is tidy this up because we've got the structure, we've got the layout, we know that it works, but the pencil tool can only take us so far, especially when you're trying to build something that has precision, has structure, and has alignment. So the first thing I'm gonna do is grab some rulers, and I'm just gonna set these up so I have some sort of guide to follow and to make sure that the letters are aligned and they're nice and consistent. Now, in some logos that I see, there's this inconsistency with either like the weight, the length of the logo, the width of some letters, and you can immediately pick that up with your eye. And if something feels off, it's going to create this distrust, which is not exactly what we want as a brand. So for this, I'm going to go in and we're going to use, I'm just going to lock the guide so that they don't move. I'm going to use the eraser tool because there's a handy way that I use it to actually cut with precision, and that's exactly what I need for this logo. So I'm going to press Option whilst I'm using the eraser tool, and it's just going to create a rectangle so I can cut with precision and make sure everything is really nice and neat and tidy. Now with this tool, I actually like to use the direct selection tool. So I'm just going to select these anchor points, bring this up to the guide that I've created to make sure that everything is in line. Now obviously, if I was designing a logo from scratch, I would normally use a typeface, or I'd create the letters from scratch. But the rule in this is that I have to customize the original Lego logo type. So I am eyeballing quite a lot of these letters. Now I'm actually going to use the rectangle tool as a little measuring tool. I don't know if anyone else does this, but I like to do this just so I can ensure there's going to be a consistent gap and width between the letters, because otherwise, if it's not consistent, it can trick the eye and kind of make it look a little bit off. So I'm just using the rectangle tool to actually measure out the width of my letters. And if we take a quick look at the letters refined already, you can already start to feel a different emotion to the original Lego logo type. We've got some really harsh lines, there's more structure, it feels a lot more compact, and this is the exact direction I really wanted this logo to go. So I've got this last one that I'm adjusting. I'm just using the same tool, the eraser tool, just to cut this off and add in a lot more structure to our letters. Now I'm just going to grab the rectangle tool again, just to use as a measuring tool, just to make sure that, you know, these have the same gap so it feels really nice to the eye. I actually think what I'm going to do is move the E a little bit closer so that it feels a lot more compact, and we'll make it just a little bit bigger so that it lines up nicely with that bottom of the L. Now, I want to make sure that the gap between these two are exactly the same, so we'll just move this down slightly. And then I'll use the measuring tool, which is my rectangle tool, just to make sure that these have the exact same gap as well. So I've got the structure, I've got the layout. I really like how the logo is starting to form into that brick. Now, one thing I always take into consideration when designing a logo is the audience. Now, one of their audiences for Lego is kids. So kids playing with the Lego bricks. Now, I don't want to make this logo too harsh, too painful. I still want it to have that kind of soft and friendly feel to it, but more structure as we've got it now. Now, the original Lego logo had the rounded corners, and I think we could bring that element back in just to soften it up a tiny bit. So I'm going to select all of the letters and then the direct selection tool, and I can just bring in this anchor point slightly just to curve it, and I think we'll go for somewhere. I'm going to adjust it up here actually so that there's more precision. We'll go for 6 because I think it just adds that slight soft touch, and we'll remove the guide so I can actually see what I'm looking at. And I think that's helped add in that softer feel to it so it can apply more to kids. Now, one thing the original Lego logo had was a really nice border around the type. I think it helped make it feel a lot more compact and also just brought the whole logo together. And I feel like that's what's missing on ours right now. So we're going to take inspiration from that original Lego logo, and I'm going to add a border around this type. And I think if we were to add a rectangle, it would just bring out this shape even more and make it a lot more obvious. So I'm going to add a rectangle behind this type. I'll make the type white so we can have a look what that looks like. Well, that's shaping it up really nicely already. And I'm just going to curve the corners just so it's not as harsh, and we want to make sure it's still applicable to kids with that softer side, but obviously we still have that structure. That has shaped it up really, really nicely, and I feel like that was maybe a piece that was missing. Now, this border that was added was just to bring out this rectangle shape within the logo type, but it also does a really good job of symbolizing a Lego brick. So we've unconsciously, subconsciously managed to bring in a bit of intention with making that look like a Lego brick. Now, something else I want to try and add into this logo is just a little bit more movement. Because when you think of Lego bricks, you think of kids playing, there's a lot going on, things slotting into one another, and I just feel like the logo at the moment is just a little bit static. So I think what I'm going to do is try and add in some sort of movement by stealing the idea back from the Lego logo. So at the start, we removed that slant, and I think it did a good job of showing the movement, the playfulness, and the fun that you get out of their products. So we're gonna go back to the shear tool, and I'm just gonna add in that slight slant to the logo to create that little bit of movement that was possibly missing. So that's worked really nicely, and I can see this, even if we were to like duplicate these as blocks, just like the Lego bricks forming into one another and actually dropping down. And I feel like just adding that slant back in has done a really good job of doing that. Now, actually doing this has sparked an idea to turn it slightly 3D. I feel like this brick could be enhanced just a little more. So I'm going to test the idea and see if it looks too gimmicky or if it actually works. So to do this, I'm going to ungroup all of this so I can grab this rectangle, copy and paste it, and I'm just going to change the color so I can make sure I can see the difference. I'm going to duplicate this because this is going to act as the shadow. And then we'll go to Object, Blend, Blend Options. That is correct. And then we'll go Object, Blend, Make. And now this turns into a really nice fluid shape, and we can elongate the shadow as much as we want. So I'm just going to send this behind the logo and see how that looks. Now, I actually think that looks really good. I think it just adds in more depth, more playfulness, and it symbolizes the Lego brick, I think, without being too gimmicky. I think we could still use this logo type maybe without the border or just without this shadow if needed, but I feel like adding this in just caters more towards the playful side of kids. Now, there's one last step in this logo design process that's really going to help bring this logo to life. And we can do that through colors. So if you want to stand out as a brand and be more recognizable to your audience, using a set of consistent colors is really crucial. And I feel like Lego does a really good job of doing this. So we want to make sure with this new logo, we're not steering too far away from those original colors that becomes unrecognizable to their audience. So I'm going to copy and paste in the original Lego logo so I can start to eyedrop the colors from this. So I'm going to change the black color to red, and I think we'll do this shadow as the yellow. Now, at the moment, it is a little bit of an eyesore. It's very bright and very in your face and actually quite hard to look at. Now, I think the reason it works well in this logo is because they've got that black border, and I think it does a good job of just toning those colors down. But I actually don't want to add any black into our logo because I think it demodernizes it. So what I'm going to do is actually adjust the colors themselves by adding in a slightly warmer tone. We'll add just an undertone of pink in this one, And then in the yellow, we'll add a little bit of orange, just so that it is slightly warmer, and instantly it's made it so much easier to look at and also a lot more modern. And there we have it, our new LEGO logo in all of its glory, completely transformed from that round, soft bubbly type into something that I think fits a lot more with their brand. With my revenge on LEGO in full effect, it was time to move on to my next target. If you want to see how that went down, you need to watch this video here where I make Prime better than Gatorade.